It's now time for Biz Sports, hosted by Kevin Burke. Kevin, you got it.
Good day, good people. Welcome back to another spectacular, another exquisite program of Biz Sports. I'm your host, Kevin Burke, online at thekevinburkeproject.com. I mentioned the kevinburkeproject.com is because that's a byproduct or a part of what we call new media or online media or the blogosphere. And frankly, that is essentially how I got the gateway into being able to have this platform to speak to you folks about various topics that I deem important in the world of sports from a business standpoint. So the blogosphere, new media, is something that's here. It's alive. It's been around for a while. And I wanted to loop in somebody who has many, many years of experience in the business, who can, share a little more about what's going on and why we should pay attention to what we call, again, new media. He is the co-founder of HHR Media Group. He is the director of sports and entertainment at Carrot Creative, and is also a co-founder of Blogs with Balls, which is a yearly blogging conference. Mr. Don Povia. Don, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me. And Don, you may not even be aware of this, but a few years ago, you essentially really gave me a glimpse into how powerful, how strong, online media can be. I was in the blogosphere for a couple of years until that point, and you may remember you actually referred me to a video project that was going on with SB Nation. Amy K. Nelson from ESPN and Bomani Jones were a part of that. You referred me to that. I rather recommended me to that. And, I went through the motions with them, was actually offered that at the 11th hour. Things kind of fell apart. So essentially that didn't come to fruition. But that, I thank you for that once again. And again, for really opening my eyes into what we call new media. So essentially, Don, with that, and we'll get to who you are exactly in a minute. But what is new media? Why should we pay attention to the blogosphere? Can you give us a background as a framework?
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard you call it a couple names in the intro, whether it was new media, online media, blogosphere. Mm-hmm. And, I joke around that, in blog years, I guess I started 6-7 years ago, and it's evolved so much every year that I hate even calling things blogs anymore because everyone's doing it. I think you talk about what the importance is in paying attention. I think we're past the point that we need to tell people to pay attention. I think they are paying attention. I think the problem that people run into is not really knowing how to harness it and really keep on the forefront of the technologies, the platforms, and really the tone and the voice that the online media has taken. So I think, really the big challenge now is not checking off the boxes. When people in, the PR and the business world think of social media, they think of Facebook status updates and tweets. Mm-hmm. And it's really so much more than that. You talk about video projects that you're welcome that I recommend at YouTube, but it's really a multimedia platform, and it's an instantaneous platform as well. So I like to refer to it as emerging media because I think. 5 years ago you could have called it emergent media, and 5 years from now you can call it emergent media. So, I think if you want to say what is it, I really think it's what the news cycle is nowadays. It's two-way interaction. It's not just a one-way, trusted source, if you will, that was on one of the big three television channels telling you what the news is. It's the newsmakers telling you directly what the news is. It is those trusted sources still taking it in real time and putting it out there. And then it's the citizen journalists as well that are able to have a voice that they never had before.
Sure. Frankly, I agree with you. I sometimes I look at the word blog now as almost so you can look at it as a dirty word almost. I kind of feel dirty, even saying it because it is essentially so much more than that. So I mentioned some of the things that you're involved with, and you said I didn't realize you were around this industry for 6 to 7 years. So you're probably like 52 years in online years, I guess. Talk a little bit about how you became a part of this and why, essentially.
I think it was like most people, it started as a hobby, and when Blogger and certain platforms like that really empowered people to be content creators, I took advantage of that, and I did it with a group of friends, and for all we knew, it was our same group of friends that was reading it. I went to school in Washington, D.C. For grad school, knew friends from all over the country, and when we kind of dispersed, we were able to sort of use that to talk sports as we would, having coffee or grabbing a beer. And, next thing I knew, you talk about that power and where it comes from, and I'm really not sure myself. I remember a couple sort of larger blogs, if you will, like Sports by Brooks, and then Hot Clicks with Jimmy Traina started linking what we were doing, and it was kind of like that holy cow moment where we realized that it wasn't just us talking to one another. We really were putting this out in public, and it was gaining some traction. So there was that viral or social element really before Twitter and Facebook, just by the blog platform that we were able to harness. And what I was able to do with that was really build a network of passionate sports fans that were sort of actively involved in the online media space. And I think that's kind of what I think set me apart. I think more than most of the people out there is I really worked at building a network, and when I saw that without any effort people were noticing what I was doing, if I did put some effort into it and promote it the right way, who knew what could happen. And Gary Vaynerchuk, you mentioned Blogs at Balls, was one of our first keynote speakers at our conference. Mm-hmm. He's well-renowned in this space. But, his big mantra was content is king and marketing is queen, and I really took that to heart and realized that you can put out great work, but if no one's seeing it, it doesn't matter. Or you can spend a lot of time promoting your work, but if it's no good, that doesn't matter either. And I think, I was in that sweet spot. I wasn't one of the early adopters of sports blogging, but I think I got in at an early enough time that I built a good enough reputation, and from that a good enough network that when we sort of took it to the next step, and I think the next step was sort of the networking opportunities and using that power and that audience that we had to do different things. And when the Sports Illustrateds and the ESPNs and everyone started catching up and seeing what this community of sports bloggers were doing and dove themselves into it, I think they were looking at a lot of those people in this network to really take some best practices from. And you mentioned the conference, and I think that's where we started. It was just a bunch of bloggers saying, hey, we got something really cool here, and we have our own little audience. How can we maximize that? Right. And when we put a group of the most influential bloggers in a basement in New York a couple of years ago,
right.
Not only did ESPN send a camera crew for Outside the Lines about the rise of social media, and Sports Illustrated had a
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, and they started, and so they started realizing it. And then the third cog of that was the marketers. I mean, as a blogger, I'm sure you've been pitched numerous times. Actually, I've pitched you numerous times. Right. But when they saw, hey, all the people that we're trying to reach online, including the new media and the old media, are all in one place, we should get involved too. So then it kind of became, I evolved from really a content producer to really a conduit between the businesses and the companies and the brands that were looking to connect, and those audiences and those bloggers who had that following. And I kind of think that's where I separated myself. Was I wasn't strictly a blogger. I kind of became that connector between the two worlds.
Right. Talking with Don Povia, Mr. Online Media. Not sure what to call him. Who wears various hats. Can you talk to me about you touched on it a little bit, but how exactly was the Blogs with Balls conference born? Like, where did that idea come from exactly? Was it essentially, like you said, you and your friends kind of sitting around, or you and your cohort sitting around? Because that thing is huge now.
Sort of. Well, we were at this thing called RaffleCon, which I think it was MIT had put it on. And really what it was a group of sort of these, I don't want to say internet nerds, I don't want to demean them like that, but it was like internet nerds. It was like the memes, right? It was Obama Girl was in the room. I went to the bathroom as soon as I got there, and there was a guy dressed like Tron. It was like a weird group, but it was a really cool vibe. It was in a bar. They got up there. There was no, there was no keywords or anything like that. It was just like talking straight. And I was there with Kyle Bunch, who I met actually at an ESPN focus group. And we really connected there because we were saying, no, you got to do it this way. We're saying a lot of the same things. Me and Kyle went to this and said, this would have been really cool if it was focused on sports and we could take something out of it.
Right.
And when we started looking around at something that we could do like that, you would see these expensive sports marketing conferences that we as young professionals or bloggers or hobbyists couldn't afford. So
Don, hold that thought right there. We're almost out of time for this week. Can you hang for a few more minutes, Don?
Sure.
Okay. Don't go away. Next week, Don is going to pick up right where he left off in terms of the brands, bringing them in, and how this Blogs with Balls conference actually became, I guess, something profitable. Don't move. This is Biz Sports. I'm your host, Kevin Burke. Josh and team, thanks for your time. Talk to you in a few.
It's now time for Biz Sports, hosted by Kevin Burke. Kevin, you got it.
And welcome back, folks, to another edition of Biz Sports. I'm your host, Kevin Burke of the KevinBurkeProject.com. Hopefully you had a chance to tune in last week where we were talking to Don Povia of HHR Media Group, Blogs with Balls co-founder, director of sports entertainment for Carrot Creative. And where we left off last week, Don, welcome back. Where we left off last week, you were just getting into kind of how the Blogs with Balls conference kind of came to light. So you're actually just getting into how some of the, I guess, some of the advertisers or some of the marketers kind of came to be. So if you wouldn't mind picking up where you left off there, Don.
Sure. I mean, I think I was saying that we, my partner and I had attended a conference that we thought would be really great in learning about, bettering our brand and doing better things in the sports space, and realized it wasn't the case, but I thought there was something there and there was a model to be had, and we started searching to see if there was something similar out there. There really wasn't, and the stuff that did exist were these, aimed at CMO types and VPs of marketing that would spend a couple $1,000s to come in there to the old boys club and pat each other on the back and talk about how wonderful they were doing in social media, but there were none of the actual podcasters and bloggers and video bloggers actually doing it, and they certainly couldn't afford a couple $1,000s for what a lot of them was the hobby. So we put together this conference, and we figured we'd get about 150 people. When we hit 300 people, I think we realized we had to cut it off, but we were probably onto something, and that was in a basement in New York. We then got asked to do Blog World Expo and run the sports track out there in Vegas. So we went from a basement in New York to the Vegas Convention Center to Wrigley Field to Bloomberg News headquarters. We were in Toronto this, I guess it was 2012 in October with the Score media up there.
Right.
So we're really international, and now we're actually planning one in D.C. with another media organization that I can't say just yet, but it's a well-known one, and hopefully that all works out for the near future. So we really evolved. We did something. We filled a void that wasn't there, and I think more than anything, the first time that we hosted this, most of the people that were in attendance said, "Oh, I know you. I know your Twitter handle," or "I read your blog all the time," but nobody had actually made any FaceTime with each other. It was the first time a lot of us who felt like we'd known each other online for years actually met face-to-face and were able to talk like normal people. And we used to like to joke that we put the social part back in social media.
Right.
Because that's what it's all about. It's just, connections and people, really.
I can attest to that, and I can speak to that firsthand. I was at the Bloomberg headquarters. That was, I guess, a 2011 conference in New York where, again, kind of like what you're saying, you meet a lot of people online, and you become, Twitter friends, if you will, or blog friends, if you will, and you get a chance to actually meet them face to face. So, which is why I really think that that conference, I think above all, is it's invaluable to folks like myself and you who kind of do what we do. Talking to Don Povia again from HHR Media Group and co-founder of Blogs with Balls, also director of sports and entertainment at Carrot Creative. What are you doing there with Carrot Creative?
Well, I'm actually moving off of HHR Media Group. I used a lot of my connections, and I worked with a couple PR agencies and consulted with a few others, to be that conduit that I talked about last week in connecting brands and connecting companies with these sports influencers. And I did that on my own for a bit. Carrot Creative, I did a project with them over the Super Bowl. It went really well. The CEO had actually been a speaker at 3 of our conferences, so we had known each other for a while, but we were looking for an opportunity to work with each other. Got that opportunity at the Super Bowl, did really well, and it was either, hey, we can keep contracting you for stuff, or would you be interested in coming aboard? And, at first I wasn't. I kind of like the freedom that I have. I have a family, and agency life was, I don't know, some people like it, some people don't.
Right.
But Carrot it was the first social media agency that was really existed. We like to say we're the first and still the best. And it seemed that their roster of clients, from Red Bull to Wilson Sporting Goods to Jaguar to A&E, it all touched sports or entertainment or passion points in some way. And we really wanted to emphasize that a lot more. So I've come over, and we do everything in-house. So we'll come up with an idea, we'll build it in-house. We have developers, we have designers. We'll bring it to market, and then part of what I'm doing is helping with the distribution, kind of like on the PR end, but also in that creative element too. Being somebody who was a blogger, who did some podcasting for a while, who's been pitched numerous times, who's done pitching, I kind of know content-wise like what works and what doesn't work. And last week we were talking about people understanding and grasping social media and new media and digital media. And I think brands get that, but not a lot of brands understand how to do it effectively. And I think Carrot impressed me enough that I kind of got out of my comfort zone where I was for 3 or 4 years now, and dove back in, and it's been great. I mean, one of the big things that we did, we came up with the idea around the NBA draft of equipping Victor Oladipo with Google Glass. I don't know if you saw that.
I had no idea you were behind that. Wow.
Yeah, that was us.
Oh, wow.
We procured him. We went and found we had 3 different sort of media folks that we had our eye on. You mentioned SB Nation last week. I went over there, and it was a good fit with Chad Mumm, who's also been a Blogs with Ball speaker.
Uh-huh.
And we found a good fit for it with The Verge, and just kind of let them run with it. But it's that kind of stuff where they've given me the freedom to be creative and to make waves. And I'd also mentioned that I think a lot of brands feel that Facebook and Twitter are the end-all, be-all of social media,
right.
And you're going to get lost in the clutter there, right? If everybody's doing it, how do you make your voice heard? You need to be disruptive, and I think that's the ideas that Carrot's trying to bring to our clients and to the space in general, is show that you have to be the first, you have to be out there, you have to keep topping it. And since the Oladipo thing, I've seen what team was it? The Rams put it on the quarterback and wide receiver Google
right.
Glass.
Yep.
Yesterday I saw Adrian Peterson had a helmet cam on, and I kind of feel like I saw these things and I said, oh, that's great. We kind of did it first. I said, but now once it becomes less novel, you need to really up your game even more. And I think that's what we at Carrot are trying to do, is like, we'll do it. We won't keep doing it and going back to that well, but trying to top it and do better things and stay in front of the, like I said, the emerging media.
Right. How does something like that begin, Don? Where does that conversation begin with Oladipo and his camp and the Google Glass? How does that start?
It was actually, believe it or not, we did a Blogs with Balls event at Google headquarters with the NFLPA and GQ magazine on the day of the NFL draft. It was really cool. Afterwards, we're kind of cleaning up and just really talking about the whole being at Google, that experience, and the Players Association, and we said, hey, wouldn't it be cool tonight, and this was just our internal group, like, wouldn't this be cool tonight if we could put a pair of glass on a player and he walks up and shakes Goodell's hand and holds his jersey, and you see this perspective that you've never seen before. And that was the idea for Oladipo. It didn't get that far. But, I mean, it was, again, it's when you take what you're doing offline and the people and the creativity that offline, we actually put those people in the room and are able to brainstorm. Really cool ideas come out of it. And if you remember that night, the guy Ziggy, what's-his-face, put a pair of 3D glasses on that night at the NFL draft. And we said, oh, now we have to do it. If he's getting so much attention for a pair of 3D glasses, let's throw a pair of Google Glass on somebody. We didn't tell Google. We didn't really tell anybody because we knew it was risky. And it's really not. I mean, there's nothing bad. It didn't interfere with anything. But there's this fear of the unknown, and we knew that would happen. But like I said, now in the last 2 weeks or so, it seems everyone's trying to do something similar.
Right. Don Povia here from Blogs with Balls, HHR Media Group, and Carrot Creative. Don, we got less than a minute here. Quickly. You've been in the business, like you said, for 7 years. For folks wanting to start a blog, what would you caution them? Quickly.
I think it's tough now. If you're really good, one of the big boys has probably already scooped you up, whether it was Yahoo or CBS or someone like that. I think it's tough to make a living off of it.
Yep.
You have to be really good. You have to be really passionate, and you have to put your time in, too. It's not going to happen overnight.
You heard it here first from someone who knows what he is talking about. Don Povia, thanks for your time. This has been another edition of Biz Sports. I'm your host, Kevin Burke of the KevinBurkeProject.com. Thanks to Josh and team, and tune in next week. We will talk to you then. You guys, be good.